So it breaks my heart when I see how we are still losing our land. Sometimes we're either forced to sell it, sometimes it's outright stolen, or we can't afford the taxes.
Well, that is Gregg Marcel Dixon, who's running for Congress in South Carolina, challenging incumbent Democratic Representative Jim Clyburn in a primary. Dixon, who says he's a descendant of slaves, calling on President Biden to give qualifying black Americans $2.8 million in reparations for the lasting effects of slavery. The motto and slogan of his campaign is Repair Black America to Fix America.
With us now, Gregg Marcel Dixon, again, South Carolina congressional candidate. Sir, welcome, and thanks for coming on National Report today. Again, running a primary challenge to unseat Representative Jim Clyburn in your state here. Tell us why you think this is a winning message and why you think it actually has the chance of succeeding.
Well, one, the reason I ran against Clyburn, first of all, thank you for having me, is because he's been the congressman of my district for 31 years. And when I did my research, I found out that Clyburn's district, South Carolina District 6, which is still a majority black district, even though it has dipped recently, is the sixth poorest district in the United States of America. But being that the majority of the district is black, obviously, I need to meet the needs of the majority of constituents. But not just that, though. There has been several economic studies, not just the most recent one by Citigroup, that shows that one of the underlying causes of poverty and social inequities in the United States of America is its history of anti-black racism that hurts not just black Americans, but all people, even white people. And I'm trying to help people make the connection that if you are a true patriot, what hurts you hurts me, and what hurts me hurts you.
I wanted to bring this up. So there's the campaign, and we've seen a little bit about your website there, but you also tweeted out this, quote, Black Americans, hashtag Freedmen, have had 90% of our land stolen since 1910. South Carolina is ground zero for black and land theft. Land equals wealth. I will get us compensated for our stolen land as well as grow our land ownership. Hashtag Gullah, hashtag Geechee. But I also wanted to come up with this going farther than that in terms of reparations, something we brought up at the very top of this. And it's been a conversation that's come up in California, and now we're seeing it here in South Carolina with your campaign. You actually came up with a reparations formula, and we'll show it here. It says each descendant of an American freedman will receive a bond and perpetuity in the amount of $2.8 million. This will result in a minimum of $189,540 per year per descendant. Can you tell me how you came up with these figures? Let's start with that.
I did research on various economists and historians that have calculated. We can't calculate, unfortunately, the emotional, mental trauma that Black Americans continue to experience. They have done very little studies on it, but there are studies there. They've done study on Holocaust survivors and Holocaust survivors' descendants and have shown that they show more trauma than Jewish people who are not Holocaust survivors. And that lasted for like a decade. So you could just imagine the trauma that Black Americans have inherited from centuries of government-sanctioned anti-Black racism. But it's hard to calculate mental emotional trauma. You can calculate land that's been stolen. You can calculate the fact that at the end of the Civil War, when slavery ended, the value of all Black people who unfortunately the bodies had a price tag attached to it will be worth in today's dollars between 48 to 82 trillion dollars. You can calculate the lost opportunities from Black Wall Streets that were destroyed, or the Federal Housing Authority that received a memo from the government to put highways and railroads through Black neighborhoods. Those things can be calculated.
A lot of
with our own formula.
Limited with time, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to get to this very specific point. A lot of facts in there, so let the fact check some of that was brought up. But what I wanted to get to is $2.8 million. Where do you believe that money is going to come from?
It will come from the federal government, just like the funding for Ukraine has come from the federal government. The funding for the PPP loans came from the federal government. The funding for these COVID-19 vaccines came from the federal government. The funding for the wars that have been fought. The funding to bail out the banks.
Right, but Mr. Dixon, really quickly here, that you are correct. It comes, that money that you're talking about comes from the federal government. They get that money from taxpayers. There are many taxpayers, many that had nothing to do with slavery. You believe that everyone should be tax-paying money to go towards reparations of $2.8 million. Is that your stance?
Number one, that money will not come from tax revenue. If anyone knows the basics of how it works from the federal government level, the federal government does not depend on tax revenue to fund the federal government. States do, not the federal government. That's number one. But number two, even if it did come from tax revenue, which it will not, think about all the times Black Americans were denied their rights, but our tax revenue, if I accept what you're saying as the truth, went to programs that Black Americans were not able to benefit from, in which we had nothing to do with, such as paying reparations to the Japanese Americans who were interned when we helped to stop
So
Hitler and the Nazi regime.
where do federal taxes go to? When you work in your job, you do know that taxes come from your paycheck, state and federal. Where is that money going?
The federal government does collect taxes, but it's mainly as an incentive that helps stimulate the economy, to get people to participate in the economy.
Okay.
The federal government tax revenue in reality really functions as a supplement to the money that the federal government can generate as a monetary sovereign. A monetary sovereign, as said by Ben Bernanke and Alan Greenspan, who were chairs of the Federal Reserve, that the United States government can generate as much revenue as it needs. The main limit is inflation, not a limit
Greg,
to what they can generate based on tax revenue.
We got to stop it there. We're out of time. I know your website's got all your information. And of course, again, facing off against Jim Clyburn. So running in a primary against a well-known congressman. So we'll keep an eye on your campaign. Gregg Marcel Dixon, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you all for having me. Take care.
All right. Take care.